Monday. Today on the podcast, we are going to be talking about the Alberta Employment Standards. Yes, a very exciting topic. No, it's not. It's boring as heck. But I feel like all small business owners should at least know how to find them, understand them a little bit. I talk a lot about hiring your first employee, and you need to know this stuff. You need to go in, you need to spend some time and review it. You just can't get around it. Um, Unless you're actually hiring an HR person to do your first hire, chances are you're going to have to do this yourself. As you know, you're hiring a first employee or maybe your second employee, you're a small business, you're struggling. You've got to learn to be a manager. You have to learn the hard stuff when you build a business. If you want to keep it a single person business, do it. If you can manage that, do it. But a lot of times we're talking about mom and pop, corner convenience store, retail store, things like that, or maybe a service business where you're going to need extra people to help you do the work. You're going to need to know the labor laws unless you can find a way to do just contractors. I'm contracting you to do this part of my business, and that's possible. You just got to know the difference between who's really a contractor and who's not a contractor. In general, if you're supplying the office space, the equipment, the work equipment, if you're supplying all that stuff for the contractor, they could be actually declared not a contractor but an employee, because they are using your stuff and you're supplying everything for them. A real contractor is someone who is a step away from your business. A real contractor is basically running their own business, and now they're doing services for you. So it's a business to business relationship. It's not a business to employee relationship. So a contractor has their own autonomy. You have a contract set up that says you do this, and if anyone wants to leave the contract, we have to give X amount of days notice. Usually it's like 30 days notice or something like that. And then you part ways. But you don't discipline them and treat them like they're an employee or anything like that. You don't give them any equipment. They're not sitting in your business. They're not sitting in your office. They're not sitting in your location doing their work. They're doing it wherever the heck they want to, right? A contractor is separate. It's not an employee. The contractor is separate. So, oh my God, already I got into a rant. But I'm going to share my screen and we're going to peruse the Alberta government website, the government of Alberta, at their employment standards website. So I'm going to share that screen now. Boom. So how's that look? That's not bad. Let's make me bigger. Yeah. I like being bigger. So there. So we'll go into this. Maybe I can shrink it up a little bit. How's that look? That's all right. Anyway, so you just want to do a search for something like Alberta Labor Standards, right? And I don't know if you guys can see that. Anyway, it's up there up at the top. It's a little covered, sorry. But you just do a quick search. If you're in a different province or in a different country or a different state, wherever, a different region, put your area name there. In some places, There may be municipal employment standards, employment rules. So your city, your town, um, your municipality, your county, right? There might be some labor stuff in there. You should check it just in case. Um, Most cases, no, especially here in Canada, but I don't know every region all over the world. You want to look at every level of government where you are to see what has been put in place. You need to look. So your town, your province or region, and your country, depending on your industry, there may be federal countrywide laws, and this is normally things like trucking, logistics, airlines, these kind of bigger industries that they've stepped in to help monitor. Oh, another place you want to also check if you happen to be in a unionized environment. I mean, if you're a small business, if you're watching this, normally you're a small business, but if you're a manager in a unionized environment, you're definitely having a look at the collective agreement that the union might have. There might be multiple unions with multiple agreements, so different employees might have to follow different rules, so you got to get to know them all. If you are in a trade type industry that's you're going into the trade, you're a welder, you're a pipe fitter, you're whatever, these sorts of things, there may be a trade union, might not be in place in your organization, but it's a great place to go look to find additional things, because the trade union might say most of our members work these hours or need to apply, the employers need to follow these safety conditions or whatever, right? This is a great place, even if you're not unionized, but you yourself might be a member of a trade union. Get to know it, see if there's any labor rules, labor standards, union standards that could apply to you, and you just automatically make it part of your system. Then as you grow, it'll be easier for you to adapt. Because say all of a sudden you've got 20 people working for you and they're all part of the same trade union, well, they might decide to try to make your business a union shop, right? So suddenly they've got a collective agreement with you and things like that, right? Anyway, breathe. Let's go over here. Employment standards. Now, this website, that's about it. Really, there's nothing fancy here, but explore pages in employment. Alberta Employment Standard Rules. See, I've been here before. I go here all the time for my clients, and I'm always checking for stuff. Employment standards rules may change depending, did a new government get elected in? Was there something from the past coming down the line, like we're changing this rule, but we're phasing it in over 5 years, right? So it is important that you as a small business owner check this website at least yearly, at least yearly, right? I would say quarterly would be better. Every quarter, jump in here, have a look, see if anything's changed. In particular, look at places that really concern you and your business. So, sorry, that was my wife texting me. How dare she text me when she knows I'm going live? So let's see, how's that look on the screen? Okay, that looks pretty good. So employment standard rules set out the minimum standards that employers must provide to employees, right? Minimum. As soon as you go below this, it's illegal. You're doing something illegal. You can get sued. Your business could get shut down, right? Illegal. This is the minimum standards. Does this mean they are ethical or morally correct? No. We can look at all of these and say, can we as small business owners do better? Because if you can do better than these minimums, your employees are going to be happier. So that in turn means your clients, your customers could be happier, right? So if there's a place you can do better, I advise you to do better. Because the last thing you need is someone coming in and complaining about the working conditions and accusing you of not following the rules. You can turn around and say, I'm doing better than the rules, right? I'm honestly trying to be a better owner, right? So obviously there means there's some other issues with that. What do you want to look at first? Ooh. So we just go down this list. Let's go down the list. So, general holidays. These are what the province of Alberta has said. These are the days you must pay overtime for working or holiday pay, right? Basic rules. There are 9 general holidays, also referred to as statutory holidays in Alberta, but employers can choose to recognize additional days as holidays. So that's an opportunity because your province, especially Alberta, might not be recognizing some national holidays that the federal government is kind of acknowledging, but they're not forcing that holiday onto the province. So this is an opportunity to say, yeah, we're going to follow that too, and we're going to give this day off to our employees. Just remember, once you start treating it like a stat holiday, then you have to pay like it's a stat holiday. Employers must have worked for the same employer for at least 30 work days in the 12 months prior to the holiday. So there's this minimum rule. So if you're a new hire, you might not qualify for the stat holiday. What's going on with my screen? Bizarre. Am I still streaming? I hope I'm still streaming. Hello. I don't know why that went down like that. That was weird. Sorry. Went too high. Okay. So you might not qualify for it, but if you're a worker. That being said, if you're a business owner, why accept this rule? You don't have to do this. You can say anyone I hire is automatically qualified for a stat holiday, right? And all the rules that come into it. There's nothing wrong with that. What's the benefit? You're gonna save a little bit of money and upset an employee. That's what's going to happen. So I don't think upsetting the employee, the new employee, is worth the little bit of savings you might get out of this, right? It feels petty. It does. Holiday pay depends on whether the holiday falls on a regular day of work and the employee works on the holiday, right? So if there's a holiday on a Saturday and that's your business is closed, nobody works on a Saturday. Well, nobody gets that stat holiday pay or anything like that. But normally our stat holidays tend to be on a Monday. And most people tend to work on Mondays. So it counts. Now, there's certain situations where shift workers and things like that, maybe you have one employee that works 5 days a week, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. No. You're trying to cover the whole weekend. So you've shifted people's work shift. So yeah, so there's an overlap. You have one person doing 4s, one person doing 3s, or whatever. The person who normally works on the Monday qualifies for the stat holiday, but the person who doesn't work on the Monday, they don't qualify for the stat holiday pay. Because their regular shift is not on the holiday, and it never is. Okay. Let's see what else. So the same calculations for holiday pay apply to full-time, part-time, and casual employees, right? That's the basic, right? You just gotta go in here and peer at this. And if you think something's going to affect you, then you dig deeper into the rules. But these are the general holidays in Alberta for 25, 26, and 2027, right? So it tells you ahead of time which days you can expect to be paying extra. Or the days you're going to get closed and you're still paying regular pay, right? Optional general holidays. So here's the optionals. These are kind of federal and religious stuff. Easter Monday. Normally we don't take Easter Monday, we take Good Friday, right? Heritage Day, first Monday in August. This is more of a Canadian I think it's called a civic holiday. Yeah, I think it's also called the civic holiday, this Heritage Day. Across the province. Some provinces acknowledge it, some don't. National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. I love that this is in here. Again, the province doesn't acknowledge it. Federal government does. And Boxing Day, right? An extra day to go shopping. I'm not going to go into it anymore. If you want to search more on that one, go in there and search more. But do better. I would say include those additional days as stat holidays for your employees in your organization. Because that's a nice thing to do, the ethical thing to do. Having employees earn a little bit more money on these special days should not be the make or break for your organization. You should be able to cover this additional pay. This is really, it's a penny pinching situation, and I say not worth it. Not worth it. So do it. Okay, we went back a page. We just did. Oh no, we're on general holidays. So I'm going to go back to page. Averaging agreements. I had to do this for oil company I worked for, well, a construction company, and we had some of our employees working under contract to an oil company, and the oil company, they're big, they're doing everything to penny pinch. So averaging agreements, it's basically allowing or agreeing to working longer shifts, irregular long shifts. So here, how good is that? That's a good spot right there. I'll leave it there. Ta-da. Okay, so averaging agreements allow employers to schedule an employee or group of employees to work longer hours per day, paid at the employee's regular wage rate. That sucks. An employer may require a permit or permit an employee or a group of employees to work an averaging agreement. I think this still sucks, but anyway, the employer will average an employee's hours from 1 to 52 weeks to determine overtime pay or time off with pay. Extending the averaging period for averaging agreements beyond the 52-week maximum requires a ministerial or director's variance or exception. So these are kind of temporary things. And every 52 weeks, you have to get all those employers that are working under this averaging agreement to re-sign it and agree to it. It's not something that just stays there always. All right. An employer must give each affected employee 2 weeks written notice before the averaging agreement starts, unless both parties agree otherwise. An employer does not have to give 2 weeks written notice to a new employee if they have given written notice to the employee before employment begins. So I'm hiring this new guy and I'm letting them know you'll be working under an averaging agreement, and are you okay with that, right? And they're like, yeah. And they just go right into it. So the Director of Employment Standards may cancel an averaging agreement and must notify the employers of the calculation. So allow employers to schedule an employee or group of employees to work longer hours per day, paid at the employee's regular wage rate. This allows things like 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, or 24 days on, 24 days off, right? You're thinking about rig workers, oil rig workers out in the ocean, oil platforms, right? These people, they go out and they work for an extended period of time, and then they get time off. So their pay is different, because once they're on site working, they're basically working all day. They're doing 16 hours every day. But they have to sign something like this, because legally, right, we're supposed to work 8 hours a day and then get overtime. Or we're supposed to work 40 hours a week and then we get overtime on everything over 40 or something like that, right? So, but this averaging agreement changes that. Uh, now it's actually kind of confusing. So I would say if you're a small business, just kind of avoid this. I say keep it with you work this many hours a day and then you get OT, right? Or you work this many hours a week and then you get OT, right? So either of those is a simpler option than getting into this averaging agreement. But if you have 20, 50, 100 employees all working the same type of job, this averaging agreement might be worth it. And at that point, you should definitely have an HR professional who's done these before to arrange them. You might even need to get your legal team involved for this. Okay. I hate averaging agreements. I hated having to figure that out. But I have experienced it. So if you need an averaging agreement, I could do it for you. I don't want to, though. Deductions from earnings. Why didn't that go? Okay. Deductions from earnings. Let's go down to the basic rules. Where's that? Where's that sweet spot without my logo? Okay. So, the code allows certain legal deductions to be made from an employee's earnings. The amount of each deduction and the reason for the deduction must be listed on the employee's pay statement. So we talk about gross and net pay, right? The gross is what I'm generating as possible pay. Net is what I actually bring home, right? Employers can deduct from an employee's earnings if the deduction is required by law, such as federal and provincial tax, contributions to the Canadian pension plan, employment insurance premiums, or a garnish of the court. So court says you owe this person some money. Usually it's like child support or something. That's probably what most of us are going to end up dealing with. But there could be other things that the court has said you owe this person, and now it's coming off your paychecks, right? Employers don't need written authorization from the employee for this type of deduction. They're informed of this. This is what's normal. There's nothing you can do. It's going to happen, right? Let's scoot this up. Is that too high? Oh, no, that's perfect. Okay. Sorry, I got the screen open and I'm just kind of looking at the video screen. Anyway, a recovery of an underpayment due to payroll calculation error. Employers don't need written authorization from the employee for this type of deduction. However, employers must provide employees with written notice before they make the deduction for the overpayment. Okay, that's bizarre. We accidentally overpaid you, and 2 paychecks from now, it'll be deducted from your paycheck, right? Employers can only deduct the errors that occurred within the past 6 months. However, if the employee provides written authorizations, deductions for older errors may be made. So don't mess up your payroll, because it's just going to start making a mess. Just make sure you have a system, a program that runs your payroll for you, or you're actually using some sort of bookkeeper or even an accountant that can calculate your payroll for you. Once you become a larger organization, you'll probably have a finance team, and one of them is there just doing payroll. Where are we at? Right. Recovers vacation pay that was paid to the employee before they earned it. Employers don't need written authorization from the employee for this type of deduction. However, employers must provide employees with written notice before they make the deduction for the vacation payment. Hi, sorry, we accidentally paid you too much vacation pay. It will be deducted on this paycheck from you, for you. Oh, my wife just texted me and said she forgot to put her salad dressing on her salad for lunch. So, oh, boring salad. Or I think she's going to save it for tomorrow. Boo-hoo. I hate when stuff like that happens. You know what? I'm a big guy. I've been a big guy since I was a teenager. Food addiction, food-related things are very tragic to me. So my wife, she's at work, and now she doesn't get to eat her salad because there's no salad dressing on it. That makes me sad. It makes me really sad. I think this might be a food addiction situation. Anyway, this is way off topic. But I remember in grade 2, back in the early 80s, this classmate of mine, she spilt her chocolate milk, and it basically paralyzed her, and she just started crying. It was a thermos, so when the thermos goes sideways, it still kind of saves some, so she could have retrieved a lot if she was quick. She might have actually saved quite a bit of it, but this spilled milk situation, and people say don't cry over spilled milk. I think we have so much food addiction, or the need for food as comfort. At that age, I got upset with her, and I was just like, why is she mad? Why is she crying? Just pick it up. Try to save as much as you can. These are the thoughts that were going through my head when I was in grade 2. But now, I'm like, oh my God, why didn't I jump down and try to save as much as possible? I don't remember if I did or not. It's been so long. But these food issues, her lunch, her chocolate milk, this was a comfort for her, routine for her. And I was just upset that she wasn't picking it up and trying to save as much as possible. But now that I'm older and bigger, in grade 2, I was a very skinny little kid. And I've changed. Things are different. If I spill my milk now, I get very upset. I dropped a carton of strawberries the other day while I was trying to work up here, and they all fell on the floor. They all got covered, and I was upset. I didn't start crying or anything, but I was emotionally distraught for the rest of the afternoon, for sure. Anyway, that's what happens when you're unscripted, man. You just start talking about stuff. We just talked about the vacation pay recovery, right? You can do that. Just let them know when you're going to do it. Authorized by a collective agreement, right? Union agreements. So union dues, things like that. Authorized in writing by the employee. So I think about this as when you start a job here in Alberta or Canada, you fill out 2 tax forms for your new employer. One that's Canadian taxes and one that's the provincial taxes or the territory taxes. And on one of them, can't remember which one, on the back, Sorry, I'm talking and burping. One of the forms on the back is a little checkbox that says, please take this extra amount of money off each paycheck. This is handy if you have a second job and you're worried they're not taking enough taxes off, something like that. Or maybe you got a side business where you make a little bit of extra money each year. So you want to take, I don't know, an extra $10 a paycheck off for taxes. It's almost like a forced savings. It's a neat little thing. And I find a lot of payroll departments miss it. So you got to kind of point out, hey, don't forget, on the back of that form, I want to take some extra money off to pay taxes, so that when you do your taxes next, you get a refund. Even if you worked a little more in one business or had a side business, it's a nice way to kind of pay it down, so there's no sudden, oh my God, you owe $5,000 in taxes. Like, that's devastating, right? Another thing, right? Written deductions for these other things down here. This is the same sort of written thing, right? Company pension plans. So they'll take a little bit out for your company pension. I mean, we don't see this a lot anymore. It's really just Canada Pension Plan, but the company hasn't set up their own pension plan. So they might deduct for that, but you agree to it. You have to sign a form and tell them to do it. Dental plans, same thing. I agree to get these benefits and I agree to pay this much per month or whatever, right? Like, that's the form you're filling out. Social funds. This seems cheesy, but say once a year, the whole team does something. We go down to a hotel and we have a big banquet and whatever, right? Like, and everyone who wants to participate in it agrees to take $20 off each paycheck to help pay for the event, right? That could be something. Oh, my eyeball, it's itchy. Oh my God. Sorry. Eyegasm. Registered retirement savings plan. So your RRSP. So you're saying, please take $100 a month off my paycheck and put it into this. Here's my account for my RRSP. Please just send it there automatically. Forced savings. Very nice. This is great if your company or your organization does a matching. So they might say, we're going to match your money up to $200 a month. If you are financially able, take this, because that's an extra $200 a month that the organization is paying you. So you say, yes, take $200 a month off my paycheck, put it into this RSP, and the company will automatically put their additional, right? So you're getting $400 a month into your RSP. That's saving on taxes, right? And I mean, it's really not hard. The money doesn't disappear. It's not like it's locked in. So if you need that money, you can just go take it out. There's always a fee that you have to pay, the tax on that, because the idea is with RRSPs that you save into it until a time you're making less money. So for 40 years you're working and you're putting all your money into an RSP, and when you retire, you're a high-level manager or CEO and you made a ton of money, but now you're retired. Now you're making just Canada Pension Plan, right? So now when you go to take the money out of your RSP, it's taxed at that lower tax rate. Still taxed. I prefer tax-free savings account. If you can max those out, and if you can set that up here, I mean, that's better, because when you go to take the money out, there's no taxes on it. You just, it's grown depending on the investments you purchased within the account. I mean, that's great. For small business owners, I would try to do as many of these as possible, right? Company pension plan, dental plans, right? All your health plans that you can get in, try to do it. The only problem is with doing that, with the benefits, is that there's 3 different versions of it. One, the employee pays 100%, but it's taken off their check, and as a company you get a deal, so the benefit might be a little bit cheaper than if the employee went out and just got their own health insurance or their own benefit, right? So it's a savings, it's a group savings, or the company pays part and the employee pays part, or it's 100% company funded. So when you look at these 3, from the employee side, the best one is 100% employer funded. It's going to be an extra cost for you as the business owner, and that might be okay. If you can afford that, I would do that. That's the gold standard. Pay 100% benefits for your employees. Because with the other 2 options, despite you setting this up and feeling good about it, you are actually taking money away from them, money they've earned. So their actual money they're earning per hour has gone way down because you've set up this plan and they're paying part of it or they're paying all of it. Grateful that they're paying, $25 less than if they got it themselves. But it still hurts them. It hurts your employee because it's taking money out of them. The employee's cash flow is important, because an employee who's struggling can't buy groceries with a great benefits plan, right? It's a great benefits plan, but they can't buy groceries for their kids. They can't take their kids to daycare or after school events or sports, you're taking money out of them by doing this. So if you're going to get benefits, make it 100% employer paid. But if you can't afford it, I would say don't do it at all. Seems cruel, but your business needs to be able to function properly. You have employees who make so much money a paycheck, but it's important that they keep making that much money and maybe get more money eventually, right? It's important. But if you're cutting away little bits of their paycheck, it's devastating. Oh, great. They got good benefits, but no food on their table. Good thing they have benefits, so when they get scurvy, they can take the kids to the hospital. Sorry, that's a little dark. Don't get benefits just to get benefits. Get benefits when you can afford the benefits. As a small business owner, it's a good thing. It's going to cost you. It's another expense. Is it worth it to just use that same amount of money and pay your employees a little bit more? Right? Balance that out. It's important that they make money right now. in the now. Benefits, they don't feed you. Yeah, let's move on from deductions from earnings. This is such a boring video. I'm sorry, I'm boring everybody. Exceptions for specific industries. Now, I kind of hinted on this a little bit before. Yeah, so you can see all these different industries. And if you're in any of them, come in here and check it out, because things are going to be a little bit different. While the employment standards rules set out the basic standards that employers must provide to employees, there are exceptions to these rules. The employment standards regulation outlines these exceptions for specific industries and occupations. In this section, find who these exceptions apply to, which rules are different, and stuff like that, right? So, I don't know. Let's go with something. If you're a small business owner watching this show, what are you? What are you doing as a small business owner? Okay. Salespersons and direct sellers. Kind of pyramid schemey. Let's talk taxi cab drivers, because I owned a taxi cab when I first got out of high school. This was my first business. Basic rules. The overtime rule for operating a taxi is 10 hours per day or 60 hours per week, whichever is greater. My taxi cab employees, they weren't employees, they were contractors, but it was like they were renting the car from me, and they did their shift, and they paid for gas at the end of the shift, and then we split the money 50-50. And then they would get paid 50% of what they made after gas and maybe windshield washer fluid, things like that, maybe some oil, those sorts of things, maybe fixing a tire. Those sorts of things came out of that before we split up the money. They would get paid, and then with my share, I would have to do repairs on the vehicle and pay off my loans and pay for all the other equipment and the advertising and things like that. Basically, my first business, I lost money. I made no money. I paid myself nothing for that 18 months I ran my taxi cab business. It was a very hard business. This was a small town taxi cab. This wasn't a big city or something like that. So I struggled. I had nothing. For 18 months. Graduated from high school, started a business, and I had nothing. And this was the basic rules, right? And I was considering everyone a contractor, but I don't think I was following these labor standards at this point. I wasn't an HR expert when I was 19, 20 years old, right? Taxi cab driver is a person employed to drive an automobile that is driven for hire to a traveler's destination, provide a service other than that of a fixed route, so not a bus driver. Charge for service using a combination of metered, time, or distance-based fare calculation. So in my cab, I actually got a meter installed. It started off at like $2.50, and then as we drove, it calculated distance. So however far we drove, it charged. And then if I stop somewhere, like we pick someone up, they stop at a store, they run in, go get their booze, then they come back. It goes into time mode, and it charges you based on time that you're sitting there idling or whatever, right? The following are not taxi drivers. Drivers who operate a bus, operate on a scheduled route, transfer patients, are not for general hire, are chauffeurs and not available to the public, or do not charge a fare, right? And other employees in the taxi cab industry. So if you have if you own a taxi cab business and you have multiple vehicles, you've got payroll person, you've got the finance clerk, right? You've got the manager, you've got maybe a full-time mechanic who's constantly repairing your cabs, right? But that's a big thing. Exception to the minimum standards, right? Of the overtime. The standard overtime rule for workers in excess of 8 hours a day or 44 hours a week, whichever is greater. Sorry, I said 40 earlier. I meant 44. Whichever is greater does not apply to taxi cab drivers, right? This is an exception. Employees must receive overtime for hours worked in excess of 10 hours a day or 60 hours a week, whichever is greater. So, hard calculation. Your payroll clerk should be able to figure this out. So you can see how it's different. It's overriding the overtime as a taxi cab driver. So there is differences in the industry. So all these industries have something that's different. Let's go with domestic employees. So this is maids or house cleaners, stuff like that. Domestic employees are exempt from overtime compensation or restrictions on maximum daily and weekly hours of work. Domestic employees who live in the employer's home are entitled to at least a minimum wage of $2,848 per month. So if you want to live in nanny, housekeeper, cook, whatever, they have to make at least that amount of money, and they're living in your house. Domestic employees who do not live in their employer's home are entitled to at least a minimum wage of $15 per hour. So if they live somewhere else and they come to your house each day, you got to pay them at least $15 an hour. But that brings me to living wage. Living wage in your area may be more, probably more. Here in Edmonton, the current living wage, I think, is somewhere like $22.65. If you're not making or you're not paying the minimum wage to your employees, you're paying them poverty wages, essentially, right? So I would say in this case, it might be worth it to have the live-in person if you've got a spare bedroom that you can offer to them. It's rent-free too. Right? Domestic employee is a person employed to do work in the employer's residence for the care, comfort, and convenience of members of that residence. Casual babysitting is not considered domestic employment and falls outside the provisions of the employment standards. Right? There's a whole bunch of stuff in here. They're exempt from overtime compensation or restrictions, maximum daily, paid at the regular rate, not exempt from rest periods, and they're still entitled to their breaks and things like that. So but there is differences. So I'm gonna tired of that topic. Excuse me. Let's go with hours of work and rest. Most employees are entitled to breaks, a limit on daily hours, and weekly days off. Right? And here's a reminder, certain industries have exemptions or have different rules, and we just went through that. So basic rules. It's a good spot. Okay. An employee may work a maximum of 12 hours a day unless an exception occurs. Interesting. An employee is entitled to one 30-minute paid or unpaid break after the first 5 hours of work for shifts that are between 5 and 10 hours long, right? Paid or unpaid. If, in general, if you are offering a paid break, there's that expectation that the employee shouldn't be going too far from the place of work, right? They're just going to the lunchroom, they're going to the break room, going outside for a smoke, they're going to the bathroom, right? They're kind of close by. And because something could be happening and they could be called in. So they missed part of their break and they finished the rest of the break off some other time, right? This is paid. So this is essentially, this is your lunch break. 30 minutes, paid or unpaid. A lot of places do an hour lunch break, but in those cases, it's probably unpaid. If you are offering an unpaid break, then you cannot dictate what that employee does on their break. They can leave, they can go drive across town, go eat lunch, drive back, they can go walk around the block and just disappear. You can't call them on their phone and say, hey, I need you to come back here, right? This is unpaid time for them. It's their time. So making a decision and things like that. As an HR professional, I advise you to give unpaid breaks. This allows them some flexibility in their life. I mean, most cases, jobs are not life and death. So it's okay if someone takes the break because we need those breaks from our work when we're tired and exhausted and need to refocus, right? We need those mental breaks. So I say gold star is unpaid. For shifts 10 hours longer, an employee is entitled to 2 30-minute breaks. So if they're doing a full 12, they do a break at 5 hours, and then you probably want to give them that next break at 8, 9, 10 hours, and then they finish off the shift. But they finish off strong because you gave them a break close to the end. So think about that sort of stuff. An employee is not choking on a booger here. An employee is not entitled to any breaks if their shift is 5 hours or less. Give them a break. Oh, my God. If you want to be kind of evil, follow this rule. If you want to say if you have a shift less than 5 hours, at least take an unpaid 30 or take a paid 30-minute or something like that. Then they can't get away, but they get a break. Now, it's interesting. I used to work retail, video stores, and I was there by myself all day long. There was nobody else in the store. So, how'd they give me breaks? I didn't get breaks. I was there the whole time. And I feel like I should have been getting some OT for my breaks, working through my breaks, right? I would run to the washroom a couple times. I'd run next door to the Tokyo Express and get my lunch, but I'd run right back to the store. Like I'd lock the store for like 5 minutes and I'd run back. But I wasn't I getting these extra hours or these benefits, the breaks, right? If an employer or an employee agree, the break may be taken in 2 periods of at least 15 minutes. Wow. This is the minimum. This is minimum. You don't have to follow these rules. You can tell your employees they can take a break whenever they want, for however long they want. I mean, as long as they have these options, right? I love it. It's an opportunity for a bad employer to be magnanimous. Hey, you want 2 breaks? We can agree to that. Employees are entitled to at least 1 day of rest each work week. So that's why we get Sundays off, right? A lot of us, we only do 5 and we get 2 days off. So that's nice. As soon as you demand someone starts working those extra days, then you got to pay them extra. They're getting their time and a half. And if it's a stat, they're getting double time and a half or whatever the calculation is, right? So that's the basic rules. You don't have to follow. You have to at least do these basic rules. But you could do more. You could do better. Right? You could give more breaks. You could give more unpaid breaks. You could give more paid breaks. That's up to you, but you have to do this minimum. The more you can offer to your employees, the happier they're going to be. Next one. Job protected leaves. Job protected leaves provide employees time off to deal with life events without losing their job. So these are not paid leaves, these are protected leaves. So you cannot fire or punish an employee for taking these leaves. Employees are eligible for most protected leaves after 90 days of employment with the same employer. So you're kind of protected from a brand new employee getting the job and then suddenly taking leave after 1 day of work, right? The full length of the leave is available immediately upon becoming eligible. So if it's 90 days and most of the leaves, you don't give them till your 90 days, they instantly get that many days protected. There's no... The condition is working the 90 days. It's not like you have to work a full year before you get vacation pay or something like that, right? Like it is instantly you get this leave. Leaves can be taken back to back as long as the employee meets the eligible requirements for each leave and they haven't used their available leave days. So each type of leave, you can kind of see them on the side of the screen here, some of these, right? You could take compassionate care leave because you're looking after somebody and then they die. then you take the bereavement leave, and then because of all this, you got super stressed out, and now you're taking some critical illness leave. Like, you can do that. Employees can do that. And there's nothing the employer can do about it. Employers are not required to grant job-protected leave to employees who are not eligible within the 90 days, right? The employer may still permit the employee to be absent from work, but job protection rules do not apply. So, when you're taking just leave without pay, right, that's not protected. So if you take too many leave without pay days, they can say, hey man, we need you here, right? Leaves are unpaid, but in some cases, income support may be available for employment from employment insurance. So, if you're taking leave for critical illness or something like that, right, you would go apply through EI and see what kind of employment insurance, EI, to see what kind of support you can get for that time period off. Yeah, so all the different types, right? We saw them all there. Bereavement, citizenship ceremony, compassionate care, critical illness, death or disappearance of child, domestic violence, long-term illness and injury, maternity and paternity leave, personal and family responsibility, reservist, right? If you join the reserves. Another one they're not listing here is jury duty. If you get called for jury duty, the employer also can't fire you. Now, these are all unpaid, unless you, as a good employer, want to continue paying for them. Maybe if they're in a sales role, you can't afford it. But if they're back office, finance clerk, admin assistant, something that's not generating money, you're going to be paying for them anyway, whether they took leave or not. It might be okay to say, yeah, you can go ahead and do that. You could even do that for your salespeople if you want, right? Or you can say, for employees, I'm giving everybody 50% of what their regular pay is during the leave period. I mean, that's a good boss. That is a good organization to be part of. You don't have to pay for these leaves. You do have to protect these leaves, so you can't punish or fire your employees because they take these leaves. And in no way, shape, or form can these leaves be included in a performance evaluation or listed in their HR file as an issue, right? You simply track that they haven't, how many days they've taken, how many days of bereavement leave have they taken this year. If they've taken too many, then you can say you'll have to take some leave without pay, and then that becomes more of a performance issue, right? But you're just tracking these numbers. That's all you're doing to make sure they don't over-abuse the benefit of that. But I say just keep paying them. If your organization can afford, you're going to pay this person anyway. So why wouldn't you just keep paying them anyway? Can you imagine the loyalty, the trust, the enthusiasm that's coming from the employee? Like, my Aunt May died and I took 10 days bereavement and my employer still paid me. Or my employer still paid me 50% of my pay. Or whatever, right? Like, oh, that person's never going to leave. That person's going to work harder. That person's going to volunteer overtime. They're going to go above and beyond because you've done something amazing for them. So, how long we've been going? An hour and 10. So, job protected leave. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're halfway. Let's talk next week. I'll talk about the rest of that next week. Stop the sharing. And I'll continue that next week. It's boring, but it is something that small business owners, especially before they hire their first employee, you should be reviewing that stuff. Do you have to memorize it? No. You just go back to it when you need it. But you want to go in and review it, like I say, at least quarterly. So if there's something that changes for your industry or type of employees you have, just pay attention to those sorts of things. A lot of times on each of those pages, there'll be some sort of warning that comes up and says, starting May 1st, this will change to this, right? Because they expect the changes to come down because there's been some new government that made some changes. Now the rules are changing. You need to go in and check it quarterly as a small business owner who's got employees or is about to hire employees. Nothing in the chat. That's okay. My tea is cold. I think we're good today. As always, put a comment if you're watching this someplace, and I'll try to answer that question next time. All right. Love you all. Talk to you later. Bye. Next Monday.